You are listening to the Wealth Without Bay Street podcast, a Canadian guide to building dependable wealth. Join your hosts, Richard Canfield and Jayson Lowe, as they unlock the secrets to creating financial peace of mind in an uncertain world. Discover the strategies and mindsets to a financial future that you can bank on.
You know, before getting down this path and having this incredible book, Becoming Your Own Banker, land in my life, I thought I knew it all. I had what Nelson Nash considered the arrival syndrome. Boy, was I mistaken. I'm so glad that I was able to read Nelson's book and change my life forever. I would encourage you to learn how this process works for Canadians, how they're implementing it, and get your hands on a copy of this book. An incredible way to do that is to go to wealthwithoutbaystreet.com/masterclass. You're going to be really glad that you did.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Wealth Without Bay Street. We welcome our listeners from around the globe, the ones on YouTubes, the Facebooks, every other podcast platform on the planet
That exists.
Joe Rogan has nothing on us. We got a bigger offer for our podcast, but we turned it down
Because we weren't gonna Spotify it own.
And we're just incredibly excited and honored to be joined by a very special guest, Borysa, who is amazing. Now, beyond being the founder, the president of BOS Events, and being the number one most trusted event planning organization in North America. So we're not just talking about Canada, U.S. markets as well.
She knows how to plan an event, let me tell you.
Oh my goodness. If you visit BOS Events, if you look at the catalog of photographs and just how passionate Borysa is about making an event so incredible, then you'll be just as delighted as we are to know her, because she's amazing. And now, due to COVID, Borysa's got a great story to share, because she, much like many other businesses that rely upon people being together and gathering at events,
physically speaking, yeah.
She had to pivot and she had to adjust, and that is true to form. Borysa, she is incredible in the way that she adapts, and a subsidiary business that she'll tell us a little bit about, BOS Industries, and working with a licensed medical device provider, and having that courage and that capability and commitment to continue operating as an entrepreneur. And
the same type of courage, capability, and commitment that was utilized when she decided to embrace the concept of infinite banking.
Absolutely. And so, Borysa, we are honored that you're with us here today. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, both of you. Thank you for that incredible intro. It's really pretty good.
And it was unrehearsed. It was actually really good.
Yeah.
You're amazing. And so, can you tell us a little bit? I think our listeners would really enjoy hearing a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. What inspired you to create BOS Events, and then lead us up to COVID and how you had to adapt and shift in your business. I think it's going to be an amazing story. Take us through that.
Okay, well, it started, first of all, I thank you again for having me on here. I'm very excited. Great to see both of you, albeit virtually. Second best thing, I guess. So thank you. I started in events, not even understanding that there was something I could do and make a career out of it. So I was working in Toronto on a thesis, poor, starving student, and human-computer interaction. And my advisor said, you really need to go to this conference in Vancouver. Just get there, volunteer, so on. So I volunteered, but all the positions that were available were no longer about the conference. They were with working other organizers, with conference organizers. So I worked my butt off for 10 days, nonstop. And at the end of it said, hey, I've got a knack for this. I like it. Introduced myself, told them I'm American and Canadian. If there's ever a job, let me know. They were impressed. They called me 2 weeks later. And then I moved to the Annapolis, Maryland, which was lovely in and of itself, and began a career. There I learned ins and outs, and sort of the focus was I got to plan and organize special events within the conferences that we were putting on, and found that I preferred that over the actual meetings and conferences themselves. Learned all the tech stuff and figured that if I have to work this hard for anyone, I'm going to do it for myself.
Hear, hear.
Fast forward, moved back to Canada, got married, had my children, and needed a job, wanted to do something, was, wanted to get back out there, in entrepreneurial spirit bugging me. So I started looking for work in the events world, and nobody would hire me. So I thought, this is unbelievable. I did all this negotiating and planning for big multi-group, big groups, big companies. So I thought about it and realized that the difference was that I was saying, hi, Richard and Jayson, I'm Borysa, and I'm super extraordinaire event planner. And the response typically was, that's awesome, but we don't need one right now. So then I called the next day and said, hi, I'm Borysa calling from BOS Events. And all of a sudden there was an interest. So it was a very valuable lesson, and started planning, moved back to Edmonton. Then somewhere along the line, one of my brothers said, you gotta listen. I heard this thing, this interview with this man called R. Nelson Nash and Jayson. They were talking about this thing called IBC. You got to join in on this webinar. So I listened. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I think it was the first time I met you, Jayson. And I remember thinking, oh, please. I've got term deposit or term insurance. I don't need, what is this guy talking about? I'm paying $40. I don't need to pay more. Why? And I think I was probably giving you a really hard time.
Yes, I do recollect.
Which I do apologize for immensely, but you were very patient, very calm, even keel. And unbeknownst to me at the time, it started my path with you as my incredible coach through the journey, and introducing me to my favorite IBC community of members, like Richard and Winnie and George. Love you guys. And I've had the honor of meeting Nelson Nash. And through all of that, step by step, and I started out with you with the process of, well, how much can I afford? What can I do? Not really understanding yet completely what it meant, but with a mere couple of $100 a month, instituted my first policy, and soon realized that I could build a system of them. Fast forward again, I started using it for my business to supplement as I was new in Edmonton and starting to get my business up and running.
Right.
It was my cash flow. And now, especially since COVID, gift of time, I've been listening to you guys, reading my favorite books.
All right. Yes.
Trying to implement all these steps and processes in place, along with coaching. Richard just finished helping me last week, was a great guide. So I don't know. All I can tell people is I'm calm. I don't know how I would have ever survived without this. And I'm not like your other guests where I have multi-million-dollar projects or something going on, but I have hope. And with your help and putting in business elements or processes in place, it's slowly but surely. What's that? It's not a Nelson Nash-ism, but how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So we're just getting through it. Anyway, it's been a very exciting journey, and I can sleep. Like, I'm not stressed by this at all. And I'm really happy that I've been able to listen to your fabulous podcast and listen to your other guests, because it's exciting. It's nice. So
very interesting to hear you say that, and thank you for that story. But also, talking about having hope and how you're calm through, and it reminds me of an expression that Jayson used to tell me many years ago: was walk calmly through the halls when everything else is chaos. And in the event world, things, despite all the best planning, you have to leave this extra level of room for the chaos that will ensue because someone doesn't show up on time, or this light's not working, or, any of these number of things, or something didn't show up when it was delivered for the event. And so you have to, you got to be able to be calm during those situations and be able to help, provide guidance, give people direction. And I think the infinite banking process, people who are embracing that as you've described, they have a better sense of calm than everyone else around them, just because of the virtue that they have, that peaceful, stress-free thing in the background that they know has been ticking away there, doing its job, and slow and steady. It just keeps on going. It's like the Energizer Bunny there. It's not pink, but it's the same kind of concept.
100%.
Yeah, it's amazing to, as you were describing, your journey, where the point began for you in your journey with the process of becoming your own banker. It brings back so many wonderful memories, because the time has gone by so fast. And if you think of all the community events, all the times that we spent with Nelson, all of the times that we've spent, you and I together, and it, wow, the time just goes by too fast. It really does. Yeah. And one thing that I've share with all of our listeners, being that, and I should have mentioned earlier, forgive me. So being part of the client series, as we call it, and the one thing I really admire about Borysa is that she doesn't have a quitting bone in her body. And it's so amazing to see, such a strong entrepreneur who just won't give up. And that takes a lot of character and a lot of courage. And so for you to,
it's also very inspiring to
absolutely
people, especially the young females who are looking to step in foray into business. And you by being who you are, just by the virtue of that, you're creating you're a role model for many other people, whether you know it or not.
Thank you.
Isn't that good?
That's really good.
And so what inspired you to branch into and create a subsidiary, BOS Industries? I'm very curious about that.
Well, as you know, in COVID times, my ability to bring people together virtually came to a screeching halt.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well, what do we do? What do we do out of this? After the stunning sort of stop, I started thinking about what events might look like. I mean, what are the protocols that are being put in place without knowing, because really the guidelines are changing and being updated daily. Yeah. But a few things are still there, and I don't foresee disappearing in the near future in public gatherings. One is wearing masks. And I also thought, well, what am I going to do? Just have cash flow, because I want to keep putting money into my premiums, right? I need to continuously do that. What do I do? So I have a team. They're ready to do something. I was introduced to someone who is a millwright and does light industrial cleaning. So he said, hey, I can't manage this part of it. Are you interested with your crew to take this on and just put lipstick on a pig, as he said, and make it look great, get it ready to hand off. So we did that, and that was wonderful. That sort of started sowing the seeds. And then I had this opportunity with one of my partners who used to do fashion shows in the industry, reached out and said, look, we're selling these masks to Simon's. Do you have any other contacts through all of your contacts in Edmonton that we could branch out into? So I thought about it, and I started doing a whole bunch of research on it. And I thought, okay, I like this product. This is the nicest one I've come across. I thought this lends itself well. It's not really BOS event related, but it's part of this umbrella of BOS Industries. And that's how that essentially started. And that turned into getting interested in and researching technology for thermal cameras and how it can be applied, going into a hotel venue so that my clients feel comfortable when they have an event and their guests feel comfortable. So little baby steps as we move into the new normal. I hate to say that, but
it's interesting that, so one of the couple things I picked up on that, and thank you for the way you described it, is that you asked yourself questions. Right? It's Nelson, it's Nelson channeling, saying you got to think on your thinking, right? And you're asking yourself questions. There's a problem that's been identified. So you ask yourself, what might I do? What might that look like? What could it look like in the future? And so your brain's going through this spider web of ideas that's now generated because you asked yourself the right type of question.
Yeah.
And it's through that creativity and the creation of possibility that it led you down the ability to say, okay, well, here's an option, and here's an option, here's an option. And they're not directly event businesses, but they will correlate to what I have to be prepared for when events are back up and running. So it's all very logically thought out. Even though they're disconnected, they're connected at the same time. And I think that's very, very profound. And it's really starts with the way that you assessed the situation and you asked yourself questions of possibility.
That's what entrepreneurs do, right? You take something from a low level of productivity and you raise it to a higher level of productivity. Mm-hmm. And that's precisely, what Borysa is doing here, which is it's excellent. And, when you think about everything that it took to get your business running, to acquire clients, to maintain those relationships. What advice would you have so there's a listener, there's a female entrepreneur who's ambitious, has a great idea, is thinking about embarking on their own entrepreneurial journey. What advice would you give to her today?
Deep breath and start a policy. No, honestly, and I'm not saying that because I'm getting, slipped paid under the table or something. No, I'm serious. You could do it yesterday. And as you've often spoken on your podcast, as Nelson Nash said, it's long-term. Best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is in fact today. I mean, I created a little spreadsheet for myself and it tracks my cash value as it grows every single day. And I like it because, well, who doesn't like to see cash values or money like trickle up and up and up? And I like it. And every year there is a guaranteed, it's guaranteed to keep growing. And I get these dividends nonstop. I know those aren't guaranteed, but they have been doing well. And thank you, Jayson, have helped me set up via the profit first discipline in where I allocate those funds. I happen to have a system of policy now that I sort of arbitrarily named the policies what they're going to be according to the profit first model.
Nice. I love it.
That's a great idea.
Congratulations.
I have my profit, I have my operating CapEx one. And so I deliberately put money into those. And I talk about this more than I talk about events with people. I am passionate, as you know. I love it. And I tell people, look, just start. And I take that little spreadsheet I created and I show them. I said, look what it does. This is day to day. I'll show you. And then it launches the explanation, and then it allows me to go, okay, look, I can't talk as a experienced practitioner because I'm not licensed. I can't give you that advice, but I can tell you this has saved my bacon.
Wow.
And it is what you need. You need capital, right? You
That's
need
right.
Cash flow to be able to go start. And the difference between me starting a new subsidiary company now versus during COVID, no less, as opposed to 12 years ago when I came here and started BOS Events or restarted it in another city. So I have money now. I have something that I can pull on that didn't exist before. And that is my biggest message to any entrepreneur, especially females who have a heart. It's a tough one. And to your point, Richard, events, it's crisis management all the way, every 5 minutes. So the last thing you need is to have that added stress of, where's the capital going to come from? What am I going to do?
I appreciate the advice of, hey, start a policy, because it's more about positioning. We all know that the time is going to go on anyway. Yeah. And yes, another event, it's not a global pandemic, but it's a something. It's a national something. It's a provincial something. It's a municipal something that's going to come up, and it's going to have an impact on whatever your business is. It will arise. Well, do you want to be, there's that expression, would you rather be looking at it or looking for it? Right? Well, when it comes to your capital ability to access capital, you'd rather be looking at it. And the way you do that is you start putting the steps in place today to make that a reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you encounter something, one of the questions that I heard mentioned at Joe Polish's Genius Network event, and you have to forgive me, I can't recall who to give credit to for that. But one of the questions that came up was, okay, throughout this experience that this entrepreneur's family was sharing, sadly the entrepreneur himself had passed away, and it was a really heartwarming story. And the family had said, one of the things that he used to say all the time was that if he was faced with an obstacle or something was happening, he would say, basically, is this happening to me or for me? Big, right? Really big difference in how your brain
immediately starts processing,
how you process that, and your whole perspective, changes. And so I find myself pondering that, if I'm faced with an obstacle, I ask that question: is this happening to me or for me? What lessons are there for me to learn? How can I grow from this? because, nothing, I just could never think of anything that could, take Borysa's ambition or perseverance away. It's, and again, when I think about, I really want to make sure we give credit to her for this event business. It's phenomenal. She's, if you imagine that restaurateur, okay, so think of that amazing restaurant that you love to go to, not only because the food is amazing and the people, but you could literally look at any piece of cutlery, and you'll see the owner of that business literally shining everything and making sure it's perfect and welcoming every guest and making them feel warm and welcome and at home. That's how Borysa approaches an event. Mm-hmm. Like, it has got to be pristine. And it's evidenced by...
And inviting.
Yeah, and it's evidenced by the photographs that you take in Sunday. Phenomenal. Now...
Thank you.
What's interesting is that, first of all, that's a very amazing trait to have, because it follows you anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? In every area of your life. And I just think it's so important for people who are listening, who have an entrepreneurial aspiration, that what I would take away from that, if I was hearing it, would be, okay, I have to be very careful and deliberately, thorough in everything that I do, because it's only going to help enhance and really increase your chances of success. Show up in a way that no one else is showing up. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that Borysa does really well.
And, and on that note, you're now looking at, okay, well, we've got these protocols, and it doesn't matter where you're located. If you're listening to this in, Texas, or if you're listening at this in Ottawa, or wherever you're located, every jurisdiction has had a different impact, and there's some different protocols in place about how they're reopening things. How is it going to work in office situations? How is it going to work at the hotels where these events are typically held, or large event centers? And so, you're trying to figure that out and work through it, and you've got some interesting ideas on that. Maybe can you walk us through a little bit of what you've been thinking about in this post-COVID reality of how people need to be considering that, and maybe if they're in the event business, or they're just looking to attend events, how they might want to be doing things a little bit differently.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you and I spoke a little bit about some ideas, asking me those same questions, which spurred on an idea to put together a summit of sorts, an education, summit for the industry or industry partners, because we are all questioning and looking. I mean, there are certain protocols in place you have to do anyway in an event for liability, logistics reasons, and so on, plus the look and feel of an event, of course. But not only are your clients, but your guests are wanting to make sure that they're safe in the venue, that that you can even go to the venue, that there are the PPEs set in place, and that the distance rules or protocols, whatever they are per province, city, are adhered to. And we're all asking, and everybody's sort of waiting for this big event to happen. It's like, okay, so, and I want to do that event. Okay, let's do it. Put the money where the mouth is and make this happen. So I've put together some tips on certain things to consider, make it fun, make it still interesting. For example, you can walk in, and as your guests come in, they can wear a wristband, a red, green, and yellow, for example. A red means back off, keep your 6 feet away from me. But it can be fun, right? It can even say it on that, because you have to consider other elements, like people might be colorblind and not know necessarily. Right. So you would write it out. Then yellow would be, I'm okay. You can come up to me, but stay away. And then green is, look, I'm cool. We can go hang out at the same table. It's fine. And it's a nice, subtle way, without people feeling awkward or weird, to just break it and have fun with it as well.
Just like setting your meal preferences when you want to go to a meal, but now you're choosing your COVID distance preferences for the event. That's a super interesting idea.
Actually, that's a great way to say it. So those are, and so I'd like to have an opportunity to discuss some of the other bigger issues that affect us. Everybody talks about the insurance element. what in our contracts when we write it, we need legal advice. What's the force majeure? What does it look like? The acts of God and so on. How does it apply? What are we doing when we write up our contracts for customers or clients? Insurance, how to pay, where does the funding come from, the financing for it. Of course, I would love it if we can have an IBC session in that involved, because it is important. People don't know where to turn to. Another one would be your accounting. How does the accounting work with this? There are about 6 sort of big topics to discuss.
Right.
We were considering having a mixture of actually implementing the rules. We're allowing 100 people in. The other part will be done virtually. And then it would be breakout sessions where people in the industry can come up, get together, and literally we're pioneers and breaking ground, saying, what are we going to do? What does this look like? And let's get creative, collaborate. I know it's one of your favorite words, Jayson. So,
it sure is.
I mean, what a better opportunity than to do that now?
Yeah, I mean, 2 people who are in the event space that might normally be in competition in the same kind of region. Well, exactly. Now you both have a vested interest in trying to get events off the ground again, and you have the ability to do something maybe grand and unique and new and different that's going to support everyone in the industry. And I think that's phenomenal. That's the changing our thinking. Nelson would say it's all about how you think. It's all about how you think. It's all about how you think.
Yes.
Right.
And now, Borysa, maybe share with us one of your fondest memories of Nelson.
Oh gosh. What an amazing man. I feel so blessed and grateful that I had that opportunity to meet with him, not once, not twice, but thrice. And I remember you and Richard would introduce him, and you'd be full of energy. But I remember the first time I met him, it was his voice. It was soothing. It was comforting. It was like listening to my granddad tell me a story, and just wide-eyed, soaking it all up. And I loved the way he could do that pause and then kind of giggle. He'd tell you something funny and everybody would have that delayed reaction and giggle. He must have just had a giggle inside as well. Yeah. And then, the lessons, because I was able to hear him more than once, see him more than once. I mean, just gentle, calm soul. That's what he was oozing out. And he just wanted to share and have you learn something, Mm-hmm. So whilst I didn't understand it immediately, I really appreciated that I had that foundational, I guess, background. And if anybody has heard your podcast or listen or go back, I mean, you can listen or download and buy that, invest in rather, his DVDs. Brilliant. And then follow up, because from it are more questions. And of course, what did Nelson Nash like to do? Ask the questions, keep changing, learning, I wanted to add something. Sorry, my brain just kind of jumped to your point, your question earlier about what to say to other entrepreneurs, women, females getting into us. And I said, start the policy. The thing about the pandemic and I'm not talking about the health aspect of it, and that it's, freaked everybody out and shut down the global economy and so on. I'm not in my industry, in events, unless your career, hired by somebody to be an event planner by the city or a company, you're an entrepreneur and you're always looking for it. So it's seasonal. Right. And again, the policies are in place there for me to deal with the tide goes in, tide goes out, the ebb and flow of the industry, mm-hmm. and the financial in and out. So this was just kind of like, well, I didn't really have any events scheduled for those couple of months anyway, so I'm okay, right? And those are, you were saying that something's going to happen. It may not be another pandemic, God willing. Yeah. But it might be something. And the other something might be that it's just, your job is as good as tomorrow's lunchtime, as the old saying goes. Mm-hmm. So this is just another example of it.
Awesome.
So in my industry, anyway, that I just want to add that. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that's excellent. And for anyone who's listening in, we're going to have some stuff in the show notes as well for you to access some of these great tools and resources that Borysa has been talking about, we just want to make a mention for tips for the top 10.ca, and that's tips for the top 10.ca, and that's 10 written out TEN, right? It's full word.
Correct.
So there's going to be some awesome stuff you can download there about, this post-pandemic realm that we're going to be entering into, and some ways to rethink your thinking when it comes to attending events or sponsoring or putting on one. Maybe you're a company and you're thinking about planning an event to kick things off again. This is going to be an invaluable tool or set of tools for you to start to think about that and really plan and prepare for it. And I would have no doubt that our wonderful guest here will be open to consults virtually, of course, to discuss that and possibly in person once it's available as well.
I can't wait for that.
Me neither. I miss you guys.
Likewise. Well, that, one of the things that we always like to do, Borysa, is, you've been, listening to our podcast. Thank you so much for doing that. Do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, you're not going to ask him about the hero?
I sure am.
Oh.
That's
what was coming. I was ready.
She's great.
He did that on purpose. He just wanted to get you off your game a little bit.
Okay. Honestly, you talk about how important it is, and so does Nelson Nash in his book, and through his well, they're not really seminars anymore. When he did his presentations, his educational presentations, you need a coach, and I know you've said that many a time, and I need a coach. I mean, you absolutely need it. I didn't learn how to cook just because I woke up one day and there it was. I mean, even my grandmother helping me, or even picking up a recipe book. Absolutely. But what is actually, there's a good example. 5 3/8. What is that? Well, it turns out it's a half a cup and 2 tablespoons. Didn't know. Needed some coaching. So I Googled it. But some things you can't Google. You want to talk to. You need to, my grandmother would say, it's just this. Just touch it. You just know by looking at it. You don't unless somebody's coaching you.
Right.
And this whole process with infinite banking is exactly the same. But I'm telling you, I'm eternally grateful to Nelson Nash for coming up with this concept, to my brother for pushing me into listening to that webinar by Jayson, to having met Jayson, becoming friends, for you supporting me, for having the opportunity to meet with Richard, have these sideline chats as well, the constant support from you guys. And I can't wait to get my next policy.
We appreciate you. You're awesome. And you know where I'm going with this. Not all heroes wear capes. And so, knowing that when you think about how you impact other people's lives in a positive way and the value that you bring to others, who do you want to be a hero to?
Absolutely my daughters. My background is in women's studies. So there's that little element's already there, and to other women entrepreneurs, especially in my industry, because it's hard. It's a hard one at times. I mean, there's so much great about it, and you have to be passionate, just like with anything, to succeed, I think, in it. And you really, really need to have the ability not to worry about where the funding when you need it comes from. So I say, that's who I want to be a hero to. My girls can get anything out of it. They, of course, have their policies and ask me questions about all the time. And I'm trying to get as many people in my industry that I meet to check it out, to talk to you guys and read Nelson's book. So thank you. Is that good? Is that what I...
That was terrific. And with
that's
that,
good.
we thank Borysa for being our guest here on another episode of Wealth Without Bay Street. Richard, my amazing, awesome friend, colleague, compadre.
Sometimes the mic guy.
Sometimes the microphone guy. The better back guy. Any closing remarks, Richard, that you want to share?
Well, I just want to share with our listeners. We're producing these. We're having a lot of fun doing it, but more importantly, we're getting a lot of value too. When Jayson and I have these conversations, we talk about them before and after, and how excited we are to meet with our guests and just get to know them even at a deeper level. Get a chance to hear from what's going on inside of their world and how their world can have a positive impact on yours. So we appreciate you for listening, for tuning in. We appreciate any feedback and that you can provide. That goes a long way to helping us get ranked on these types of podcast players and things. And we just appreciate you to keep listening. And if there's something you want to hear or a person you want to hear, or us to try and, knock on their door and get them on the show, let us know that too. And we'll do what we can. Who knows? Sky's the limit.
Except for Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
He won't be a guest because he's busy.
Apparently, he's got
over at Spotify.
Got a new deal. But who knows? Maybe we'll go up there.
And I would close in saying too that to all of our listeners, go ahead and smash the like button, comment, rate the show, give us 5 stars. We love 5-star reviews.
Yeah, those are generally the best.
Unless
ones. They give you an option for 10, you
can do that too. You can do 2 5-star reviews.
Maybe I can.
Maybe yes. Yes, absolutely. And so, thank you for listening, and we look forward to our next episode in our client series.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Without Bay Street podcast, where your wealth matters. Be sure to check out our social media channels for more great content. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and be sure to rate the show. We definitely appreciate it. And don't forget to share this episode with someone you care about. Join us on the next episode, where we continue to uncover the financial tools, strategies, and the mindsets that maximize your wealth.